This is the Wednesday, July 17th, 2019 Local Agency Formation Commission meeting. And could I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Cosgrove,
Present.
Commissioner Garbarino,
Here.
Commissioner Horsley,
Here.
Commissioner Lohman is absent, Commissioner Rarback,
Here.
Commissioner Slocum, Chair Draper.
Here. Thank you. On the consent calendar is approval of the minutes for May 17th.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, they're approved. Do we have any cards for public comment for items not on the agenda?
None.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead. Item 4.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. We staff thought it would be helpful for the commission to hear from Dan Belleville about the San Mateo County hazard and mitigation and planning that's going on. And he'd like to just make a brief presentation to you.
Great. And before he starts, if for the record, please come up. I just would like the record to show that Rick Lohman, Commissioner, has arrived. Thank you.
Late, but.
Please go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you. And Commissioners, thank you for giving me some time. Staff, good afternoon. My name is Dan Belleville. I am the Director of Public Safety Communications. And I wear a couple of hats at the county. I also double as assisting the Board of Supervisors and the County Manager with all things emergency preparedness and fire risk. And the reason why I was selected to wear that hat is I have a pretty long history in the fire service in this county. I actually started off in Santa Cruz County in the late 70s, but have been at the county for over 40 years. I've actually known Martha quite a long time because I'm about neck deep in all things consolidated. I worked for a couple of consolidated fire departments, did a lot of work in the Highlands area, Martha, what's the area between San Carlos and Belmont? The Harbor Industrial Area. It was quite a project quite a few years ago, but my career has been pretty deep in trying to consolidate efforts, break down fences, and work together. So I feel pretty good about the natural fit working with the county in looking at fire risk. And if I can just briefly give you a synopsis of the county. When I first started in this county many years ago, we were often protected by the marine influence that we used to get, the fog that used to roll in, and it would nurture our plants, and it was a much greener place. But as we've seen climate change over the last 30 years or so, it's much more vulnerable than it has been in the past. We used to be kind of protected in the evenings for much of the year. There was a lot of fog, especially in the north part of the county, and that's very different now. So we're quite vulnerable. So the Board of Supervisors and the county manager approached me actually before the Paradise Fire, which was last year that we're all very much aware of. And I mentioned the Paradise Fire because it wiped the community off the map. And a year or two before that, I believe it was Lake County, there was a little area called, Cobb Mountain. It got kind of wiped off the map. So when I started in the fire service, there were homes in Southern California, 300, 500, which were big fires. Now there are thousands of homes burning. And so San Mateo County is at a great risk of some of these fires. So when I started this project, the idea was to try to break down some of the things that are taking place in the county so that we can all work together, that the county can support the local jurisdictions, we can learn from one another. And what I thought I would do, Madam Chair, if it's okay, is just highlight some of those things that we are doing. And if you have questions, please feel free to interrupt me, or if you'd like for me to do a more in-depth analysis later on, I'd be happy to do that. Is that okay with you?
Certainly, that's fine. And I just wanted to note for the commissioners that I'm sorry Mike O'Neill is not here today because he had said we periodically need to look forward to what issues might come to us when we do municipal service reviews. And so that's one of the reasons why you're here today, just to say, what are some of those issues that may come up that would affect our operation? So thank you for being here.
Certainly. Happy to be here. Thank you. So just a few of the things that I'll highlight, and again, feel free to interrupt me, is we started to work with the Office of Sustainability in the county with an SB1 grant, some money that was available, and we developed a fire safe team. It's actually called FRST, like FIRST. fire risk strategy team, and that's where we bring collaborators, key people from all around the county that are instrumental in making things safer in this county. So from that, we actually did an off-site presentation based on climate change, and maybe some of you have been part of that, but there's been a few of these presentations dealing with climate change, one of them specific to fire and fire risk. So we did some of that, and we had some collaboration, got a lot of good out of that. We developed the fire risk strategy team. We also met with all of our legislators so that we have state support whenever something comes up that might be applicable, that would help our county in the form of grants or building construction enhancement, those type of things. We have the year of the legislators, so we've made good progress in meeting with them regularly. And then primarily we've been collaborating with all the towns and districts, like I mentioned. So various agencies are doing a number of different things, but when we come together, we're trying to learn from what is working well, what doesn't, and sort of double our efforts rather than doing things independently, which I think is the exact mission of LAFCo, is to try to bring things together and drop those barriers. In terms of vegetation management, our Fire Safe program has been around for quite a few years, almost 30 years, and the county has helped support some of Fire Safe, most recently just buying a chipper, because vegetation is a huge part of this whole fire risk analysis. And the ideal thing now that we think is, based on that Paradise Fire, vegetation management and fire prevention efforts were largely carried out by the fire department. And now, all these years later, we think it needs to be a collaborative effort with Parks and Recreation, Public Works for bridges. There's all these areas that we think we can get some support for, and we're bringing all those people into our meetings. So for example, on Public Works, we're actually working on 3 gates right now that are between an unincorporated part of the county and San Carlos, where we can evacuate people, because we've transitioned our strategy from mostly suppression to notification and evacuation. We have to get people out because these fires are moving so fast. I actually just saw pictures the other day of the car fire. One of the firefighters died up at the car fire. That was Reading last year. And the vehicle was upside down and twisted like it had been in a tornado. He was trying to evacuate people, and the winds are so strong now, 100 miles an hour plus, it's picking up vehicles like you would see in the Midwest, turning them over, and it's just demonstrative of how violent these fires are. So we have to get the people out. We have to find these evacuation routes. We have to notify them to get out before we start suppression efforts. So we're working with Public Works on removing these fences between jurisdictions, which were a big thing in the 70s. Some of these jurisdictions didn't want cars traversing back and forth. So we're working with Public Works on that. We have some mapping projects in play right now. The county supported some funding to identify some evacuation maps that are being developed in Berkeley as we speak. And these maps will be tied to our GIS system in the dispatch center, the new dispatch center, the Rock building. And we will have coordinated efforts with police and fire like we've never had before. This very advanced technology to identify sectors and coordinate ourselves rather than looking at paper maps. So pretty sophisticated technology. We're also doing a vegetation mapping project that will actually take a couple of years. Sonoma had completed one where they actually look at every aspect of nearly every square foot of the entire county to map the type of topography and the type of vegetation that's growing so that they can predict where these fires may travel once they get started. So more technology is coming in, so we might say there are certain target areas in the county that are most vulnerable, so we might tackle the vegetation management there before others. So we can start to triage some of these areas rather than sort of a hodgepodge effort of, let's try this one, let's try that one. There's a little bit of money here, there's a little bit of money there. We're all coordinated in our efforts. The big one and the toughest one for all of us is home hardening. And home hardening is a term that describes how to make a home safer, because oftentimes now what we're seeing, especially up in Santa Rosa, was the neighborhoods are becoming the fire hazard now. Once the homes catch on fire with these winds, that's more of a problem than the vegetation. So when you home harden, you design elements into the building to retard the homes from laddering from one building to the other. Closing the eaves off, they call it boxing the eaves in. Having fire-resistive roofs. Believe it or not, there's still many jurisdictions that don't have that code enforcement in place. So home hardening is a very, very difficult issue to overcome because most of the county is what we call pre-existing non-conforming. Older buildings out there that aren't built to be fire safe. So it'll take many, many years to try to change that risk that we have. But again, we're working with the legislators, we're working with other jurisdictions and the state to try to change home hardening and over time try to make our neighborhoods safer. We have a number of different things that we're working on, volunteer groups. We have cameras that are being installed up at the college district as we speak. Probably in the next 4 weeks, cameras will be installed that can essentially take a view of our hillside areas and confirm. It's like 911 confirmation. If there's a fire in the hills, that camera will pipe that information to our dispatch center where they can see smoke and then adjust the response accordingly, get helicopters or the needed resources here faster because the fire is confirmed through the cameras. So we're doing a lot of things with PG&E, with Public Works, Parks and Rec. We're all coordinated. It's not where we would like it to be. It's a lot of work, but everybody is probably working better now than I've ever seen in my career. So those are a few of the highlights. I know I said a lot of things. I would like to invite questions if you have any. And if you need some additional information, I'd be happy to share that. And before I leave my comments, this is just a few months worth of work of the types of things we're doing. These are all significant topics of some of the things I just talked about. It's demonstrative of how significant this project is and how much work it takes. So please, any questions that you have, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions?
Yeah, Director Belleville, thanks for coming out today.
Thank you.
I live up in Far Montera and see the fire danger every day when I walk out my front door. It's my understanding that Santa Clara County and possibly some other cities are providing free chipper service. You mentioned that you've just acquired a chipper. I can't clear my land fast enough without a little bit of help. Is there hope that San Mateo County would do something similar?
Yeah, so it's pretty significant, the vegetation management, because there's so much that has to be done. But certainly what we do in Fire Safe is identify and target those areas, and we have resources available to mitigate or reduce those projects, especially when they're significant, when there's a higher threshold of risk than what you might otherwise see. So yes, those resources are available, and I'd be happy to receive emails and direct that information for anybody that has a question along those lines.
Commissioner Rohrbach?
I'm aware that CAL FIRE has received a grant from the governor to deal with vegetation management on the coast side. How does that mesh with what you've been talking about?
That was actually one of the things I had on my list, but I didn't want to go on and on. But yes, we did receive 2 grants based on information that we sent up to the state, the governor's office. We had 2 projects. They're loosely termed as a 45-day project. We should have those completed by the end of this calendar year. And they were part of, again, I think our consolidated effort and describing the risk in this county and essentially being on top of what our responsibilities are, giving that information to the governor's office and being awarded 2 grants. Yes, that's part of the process. It's all very much coordinated in what I've been talking about.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
No, just a comment is that the two, one is on Kings Mountain Road and the other one is on Quarry Park. Quarry Park is a fairly, this on the coast side is probably the highest potential risk for wildland fires. And actually, it was listed of the top 35 in the state. There's that one and Kings Mountain Road.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. And when we do have fire municipal service reviews, we'll work with you to try to identify those critical issues as it relates to governance. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Now we have item number 5, which is file 19-04, proposed emergency sewer extension by the city of Redwood City. Staff, is there additional comments?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. You have the Executive Officer's Report dated July 8th, 2019 for LAFCo File 1904, which requests a LAFCo approval for the City of Redwood City to provide sewer service to an existing residence located in the town of Woodside. And Government Code Section 56133 does allow agencies to extend services outside their boundaries if it's to mitigate an impending public health threat. As noted in the report, County Environmental Health supports the proposal, and it's noted that in September 2017, the property owner was informed that the on-site septic system was failing. The health and safety code provisions concerning sewers and septic systems prohibits the property owner from rebuilding the existing sewer system when there's a municipal sewer line within 200 feet of the structures, and the property owner must then attempt to obtain a sewer connection with the municipal wastewater provider. The only line that can serve the parcel is a Redwood City line located in Ferdwood, just on the outside of this neighborhood. On June 10th, the City of Redwood City Council approved the resolution requesting LAFCo approval for a sewer extension to 115 Harcross Road in Woodside, and the town of Woodside is supportive of the extension. And so because this is outside the city's sphere of influence and located in another city, this would be a sewer extension that would not be subject to the deferred annexation policy. The City of Redwood City agreed to extend sewer service because the septic system poses a health and safety issue. The city's sanitary sewers are the only municipal wastewater lines available. The property owners entered into an agreement with the city regarding the construction and maintenance of the sanitary sewer improvements, and the project is exempt from CEQA, and staff recommends approval. And with that, I'd also note that Dan Siegel, the representative of the applicant, is present in the audience if you have any questions.
Commission, do you have any questions? Is there a speaker for this?
That's for item 6.
Okay, right. Okay, the recommended action is on page 2 of the report. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve LAFCO file number 10-404, the proposed emergency sewer extension by the City of Redwood City to a single-family home at 155 Harcross Road, Town of Woodside.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's approved. Okay, item 6 is LAFCO file 17-19, proposed annexation of some parcels in some parcels, and there's a variety of actions. Staff, if you could give us the background, please.
I would be happy to. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. This proposal submitted by the landowner petition requests annexation of 2 parcels, 1304 Elmer Street and 633 O'Neill Avenue, to the City of Belmont and detachment from the county-governed Harbor Industrial Sewer Maintenance District and the Belmont Highway Lighting District. The proposal includes the annexation of associated road right-of-way on Old County Road and O'Neill Avenue. And the applicant's stated reason for the annexation is to create a more logical boundary and provides city services to the proposed development on the properties. The applicant is proposing the construction of a multifamily residential building known as the Windy Hill Project on 2 of the subject parcels, as well as 3 parcels that are already located within the city limits of Belmont. The new apartment building will create 250 dwelling units, 38 of which would be made affordable to low-income households. 2 of the parcels, as mentioned, 1304 Elmer and 633 O'Neill, are located in unincorporated San Mateo County in the Harbor Industrial area. Currently, also, there is road right-of-way on O'Neill from Elmer Street east to Keith Street, and I'll show you a map or 2 of that, where the right-of-way is divided along the center line of the road, with the north half being in the City of Belmont and the southern portion being in the County of San Mateo. The annexation of the road right-of-way would alter the boundaries so that the City of Belmont would encompass all the road right-of-way on both Old County in front of the project, as well as that section along O'Neill, so that the entire road width would be within the jurisdiction of the city. And this would allow the city to coordinate improvements required by the project that are proposed in the right-of-way. There is here's a map of the area showing both the current cities of the city of Belmont, along with the two parcels that are proposed to be annexed, along with part of the right-of-way on Old County. There is another property that is on the corner at the northeast corner, well, I'll call it, that you'll see at O'Neill and Elmer that is not part of the project. That's 300 Elmer. LAFCo staff, the city, and the applicant reached out to the property owner, but they were not interested regarding annexation at this time. And due to a project that was being processed by the city of Belmont and their timelines and the importance of housing in the region, we felt that it would not be appropriate to add that property at this time to the application. And this is a map showing that road right-of-way along O'Neill. The pink portion, that southern portion, is the portion that's currently in the county that then would be annexed to the city. And this is kind of a before and after. This is the area prior to annexation with the city of Belmont in blue and unincorporated county in orange, along with that project boundary with the green line delineating that. And then that would be the change within the project area. So again, the two APNs, two parcels, the road right-of-way along O'Neill and Old County Road. I'll come back to the per recommended action in a moment. The properties are currently connected to sewer from the Harbor Industrial Sewer District, a county-governed special district. As part of the proposal, the properties would detach from that district and be served by the city of Belmont. The annexation to the city and detachment from the districts will result in the transfer of service responsibilities for both police, fire, streets, stormwater, parks and recreation, and street lights, and the transfer of associated property tax revenue to the city of Belmont. The applicants indicate that the proposed development will be consistent with the City of Belmont village-specific plan area. The proposal is consistent with both the city's sphere and the sphere of the special districts. The proposal has 100% landowner consent and requests a waiver of the conducting authority proceedings. The rezoning of the property, or the pre-zoning of the property by the City of Belmont was approved on May 17, 2019. To briefly touch on the applicable factors to be considered for the annexation, it is anticipated that the project will increase this City of Belmont population by approximately 500 residents once the project is complete, which is consistent with the Belmont specific plan that was adopted by the city. The proposal promotes economic development and much needed housing within the area and the region. The proposal is consistent with both the city and the county general plan policies encouraging annexation to areas within city spheres. It also is consistent with the detachment of special districts, consistent with policies for a more efficient delivery of services. The city has indicated there's sufficient revenues and resources to serve the property in future development. The proponent has received will-serve letters from all affected utilities, and the proposed project would not exceed the anticipated build-out of the Belmont specific village plan. As mentioned before, the annexation and the construction of the project would result in approximately 250 units, 38 of which would be affordable, which make a positive contribution towards the city achieving its respective fair housing, regional housing needs. And the project does not include a disadvantaged unincorporated community. And the existing uses on the parcels are commercial and light industrial, and there'll be no impact on any residents as part of this project and as part of the two parcels. Regarding CEQA, the City of Belmont certified a final environmental impact report for the city's 2035 general plan and Belmont specific plan in October of 2017. The city, as part of its project that evaluated the multifamily dwelling unit, it required an additional addendum, which was an attachment to this proposal and to this staff report that evaluated the project. The addendum stated that the proposed development would not result in any significant impacts that were not considered by the original environmental impact report, and this addendum was adopted by the Belmont City Council on May 14, 2019. So LAFCo, as a responsible agency and as the commission must certify that it has considered the contents of both the EIR and the addendum prepared by the City of Belmont in considering the annexation application. And pursuant to CEQA guidelines, the commission as a responsible agency must consider those addendums for the Windy Hill project. So with that, I conclude my report and recommend that there be two actions which are on your screen, that both by motion, the commission certify the environmental impact report, the addendum for the Windy Hill Windy Hill project, and then by resolution adopt the annexation and associated attachments. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Yes.
Two. One question. What's the level of affordability?
That I don't know, but I believe there is someone from the city of Belmont that could maybe shed a little light on that question.
And the other question, come on up. And the other question would be, why not incorporate the other one? Probably going to get incorporated at some point, 1,300. Did we do that because the property owner opposes it, or?
If they came on board and they did not have consent, then there is a question about valuation and there is potential then for protest. So we had tested to see whether they were supportive of the project, and I believe that they've given that indication to the city of Belmont previously. They were not willing to be annexed at this time, and maybe I don't know later in the future, but because of their lack of effort to be annexed, we did not want to include them at this time in case there were negative impacts then on the project itself. Okay. In case that would slow that down.
Hello, can you identify yourself and
Yes.
shed some light on the question?
Sure. My name is Carlos Tamelo, and I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Belmont. We wholeheartedly support the proposal that's before you today. And certainly answering the question, 15% of the units will be available at a low income level. So if it was a subdivision project, it would be at a moderate level, but because it's an apartment project, rent project, it's at a low level.
Do you know what that is in terms of its percentage of AMI?
I'd have to go back to the county's records, but depending upon the size of household, it's certainly better than market rate.
Okay, thanks. Thanks.
You.
Any other questions, Commission? We have a public speaker.
Yeah, we had Todd Spiker.
Hi, Todd Speak with Windy Hill. I'm just here to let you know that I'm the applicant of the project, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Okay.
That's all. Thanks.
There's two recommended actions there on the board above and in our report on page 8. Is there a motion to make these two recommendations?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve actions 1 and 2 as shown on page 8 of our report. All in favor?
Sure.
Yes, sorry.
Can I just make one quick comment real quick?
Certainly.
It seems to me that the guidelines for affordable housing are to be near transportation, jobs, and shopping. And this seems to fulfill those ideas rather than putting it in like remote places. This seems to be a good area where it meets all this criteria. So I would definitely support this.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, if I might interrupt, if you could just do them two separately, for the first by motion and the second by resolution, I think that would be cleaner.
No problem. So let's take we've had a motion and a second, but let's take the action on one, which is the first one, which is by motion, recommendation number 1. All those in favor?
Aye.
And recommendation number 2 by resolution. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. All
And
unanimously.
you need to assure that none are opposed, otherwise we need to do voice count.
Okay. Any opposed to either? Seeing none. We're okay? All right. Item number 7 is something that the legislative subcommittee has been working on, and I'll turn it over to staff. But I just wanted to say that the two alternate, Jim O'Neill and Katie Martin, have been really active in the subcommittee, and I want to thank them for all their effort. So, staff?
Yes, thank you. Item 7 is the consideration of adoption of updates to the policy for municipal service reviews and also for sphere of influence reviews. You have a staff report and attachment dated July 10th that reflects the Commission's policy committee's review of updated policies for both municipal service reviews and spheres of influence. The report recommends that following commission input, the commission directs staff to circulate the draft revised municipal service review and sphere policies documents to the county, cities, special districts, homeowner associations, and other interested parties, and then place the policies on the for consideration at your September 18th meeting so that there's time for interested parties to comment. The draft municipal service review outlines the required areas of determinations that are set forth in Government Code Section 56430, and it also includes provisions for stakeholder and public participation, the details of the review process, and a list of agencies that are subject to MSRs. The areas of determination are updated to be consistent with current state law and add local policy consideration regarding water resiliency and climate change and natural hazards. The MSR policy was last updated in 2014. I'm going to provide just a brief overview of the MSR policies, and Rob is going to cover the sphere of influence policies. The policies include sections on purpose, legislative authority, definitions, agencies to be included with an appendix listing the districts, and applicability of the Environmental Quality Act, as well as provision of stakeholder and provision for stakeholder and public participation. In regard to the list of agencies subject to MSRs, after an inquiry that LAFCo's received from the State Controller's Office, we are in the process of determining whether the San Mateo County Transit District needs to be added to that list. It's a district that was created in the 70s by special legislation, and it is countywide. It does have a sphere designation, but there's never been a sphere of influence study on it, so we're going to figure out the details of that. Government Code Section 56430 sets forth the areas of determination for a municipal service review, and the policy document includes the source documents that would be used for each area of determination. Determination G permits commissions to establish other areas of determination based on local conditions. Staff has added the recently adopted policies regarding water resiliency and climate change, and has added an area of determination regarding natural hazards and mitigation planning that includes hazards such as flooding and wildfire. And in those regards, as we're looking at what kinds of questions would we ask for those determinations, we would rely on experts like Dan Belleville to help us kind of drill down to that. The process section provides for establishing a schedule of municipal service reviews and municipal service review preparation by staff unless complexity or controversy merits a consultant-prepared report. The transmittal of data requests to the agencies under study, preparation of an admin draft report that would be reviewed by that agency for accuracy prior to preparing a circulation draft. And the procedures allow for a workshop or study session prior to consideration by the commission at a notice public hearing, and that might be something that's held and hosted by staff or staff in the commission, depending on the commission's desire. The public review period prior to the LAFCo hearing will be a minimum of 30 days. And lastly, the procedure allows for a continuity report 1 year after adoption of the report, so asking the agency to come back and tell their story about what's changed or what's been implemented based on recommendations. So before we move on to the sphere of influence policies, I'll be happy to answer any questions about municipal service review policies.
Chair.
Yes.
Real quick question, generic on both these. Do you have a document which shows any major changes between the old ones and the new ones, or are the old ones like online where we can look them up and compare?
We didn't provide them because these are basically kind of a start from scratch and a revamping of them. I can send those out to you if you'd like to see them.
I just want to add that on that question is that one of the issues that we grappled with was just organization, because there were some things, like I'll use definitions as an example, were strung throughout the whole thing. And we said there should be a section called definitions. And then we had a big discussion about adding definitions that weren't there but were defined, like circulation draft is one. It was a term that was used, but not everybody knew what it was. So it got added into definitions. So things got moved, not changed, but moved around. So I think it would be hard to do like right, because things got moved around so that there was a flow for the reader to to be able to see where like things were in the like thing. But you could look at them side by side. You have a question? Yes.
Not on the policy, but I would like to make a request of staff. We're going to have a special district San Mateo chapter meeting in August, targeting August 16th right now. And I was wondering if it was possible, maybe one of you could be there to, this will be one of our agenda items, and there to maybe answer any questions that any of our colleagues may have.
Of course.
All right, I'll email you the specifics then. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, let's go on. Sphere of influence.
So I will briefly touch on the sphere of influence policy updates. So as part of it, we also then made sure that the formatting was similar to the municipal service review for the sphere of influence. We eliminated the distinction between city spheres and district spheres and their policy requirements. They were rather duplicative and added, I think, 3 pages or so to the existing policy that we were able to consolidate down into one that captured both. We eliminated references to the urban service areas as they were not utilized, because the last time the SOI policy was updated was 2001. So we also then updated the spheres to be consistent with updated state law. Like I had mentioned, we added a definition section. We consolidated a number of sections down so that they capture both special districts and cities. We talked about the amendment process and updates to spheres of influences that we had mentioned. We also then discussed and added a couple of sections about how land use agencies would work, or how we would look at spheres of influences related to the Coastal Commission and if there's any influence there. And we also did make a quick change that I think there should be a copy on each of your dioceses for just the first page of the sphere of influence in track changes. We added additional language in the second paragraph under background, specifically referencing that LAFCo will utilize general plans, local coastal programs, and other local planning documents to inform and guide decisions when going through the sphere of influence update process. And I think that's important to make sure that we both connect them to municipal service reviews, but then also to existing policy documents that agencies have to make sure there's consistency when we do those reviews and what those spheres of influences look like. But similar to the MSR policy, there was kind of a wholesale shift of paragraphs around for formatting, so it would make it rather difficult to do a one-to-one comparison, but we certainly can get you the copy of the original 2001 Sphere of Influence for your reference. I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, and so what you are looking for us, I think, is to say, yes, we can send this out and to come back to us. Is that correct?
Correct. And there's actually a sample draft letter as attachment C to the item that we will be looking to send out to those interested parties that we had mentioned.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, we do.
I'll make a motion to approve the letter to the city managers and county manager and special district managers and interested parties.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. All right. All right, we are in the legislative report. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll keep my report brief. There was a Legislative and Policy Committee meeting on July 3rd, and at that time there were 24 measures that LAFCo was reviewing and tracking. There are no new either letters of support or opposition that have been requested by LAFCo, but LAFCo staff continues to track the 24 items. Along with those bills, there are a number of water bills that LAFCo and San Mateo LAFCO will be continuing to take a look at. We also continue to track AB 825, which is regarding legislation to form the San Mateo County Flood and Sea Level Rise Resilient District. That's mentioned in your report. I believe right now it's still in review in the Senate at this time. And the legislative report from LAFCO is attached along with the San Mateo County tracker essentially where we are with the 24 bills and whether there have been letters of support or opposition that have been submitted by San Mateo LAFCo, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
One question to the chair. It indicates that the reorganization of the flood control district would not be subject to LAFCO review. Are you talking about the actual, are you talking about the old flood control districts, the Colma, Belmont Creek, or are you talking about this new one that's being created, the sea level and flood resilience? Is that district not, doesn't have to do a sphere of influence or
Through the chair.
LAFCO review?
Correct. So the flood control district is being reorganized into, via this legislation, flood control and sea level rise agency, and it will be an agency that will not be subject to LAFCO as far as I know.
How come? Sort of, I would think surprising.
In terms of municipal service reviews and
Yeah.
spheres, we'll have to look into that, but right now the legislation doesn't have that specified.
Okay. I'm actually, as one of the new, I guess I'm a commissioner or a director, whatever we're going to call ourselves, I'm fine with that, but it's just kind of surprising.
Any other comments or questions by commission? Yes.
I didn't see AB 924, I believe that's what it is, that has to do with requiring redistricting after the census. Does CalLAFCO or us have a position on that?
I don't know that the commission would take a position on the redistricting after the census. I don't have a recommendation for you.
It's going to make a big difference to small cities. That's why I'm asking. Be very expensive. But, okay.
Any other questions? Okay. On to item 8, which is nominations for the LAFCO Board of Directors. And we have a report on that. And they're accepting nominations for county and special district member in the coastal region, which is our region.
Through the chair, there's also, I just learned today that the public member is also not going to be continuing on CalLAFCO. So it's actually county, public, and special district. And you had asked a very good question. Yes, alternates on LAFCOs can run for the CalLAFCO board if they're interested. So this is food for thought for your September meeting. If there is a recommendation to nominate someone and that person gets appointed to the CalLAFCO board, then the commission would want to look at its budget because there's quarterly travel required for that being on the board.
Any interest? Rick is looking away.
Okay.
You want to think about it?
I want to think about it.
Okay.
All right. But thanks.
Interested?
Yes, I am. Also have those concerns about my spouse.
Okay.
All right. Do we go on to the CalLAFCO letter regarding the staff workshop?
That's for information only.
Okay. Item 9, any commissioner staff reports that we might have? Okay, we are adjourned then at 3:14. Thank you.